Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, oh, hello. Sorry, we're having a technical moment. Yes, thank you. And may I also wish Councillor John Clark a speedy recovery. It's never good to hear of people being unwell, and I truly hope he returns very soon. We've just. I would love to be able to carry on these sort of discussions in the way that they always begin, and I'd like to think I can do that this time. And what I want to talk about first of all is the fact that we are increasing this council tax by the highest percentage before a referendum is required. In a council that has the 26th highest council tax band E rate out of 303 councils. And a question I ask about this is, if we are increasing that council tax again, what benefit are the residents of Gedling getting from that council increase? Are they getting anything new? Are they getting any of their services upgraded? Is there any improvement? Is there anything new? You know, what sort of things are going to really take them forward and take this community forward? And I'll be honest, I do find it a little unambitious in its target, but I do love the ambition around the Gedling plan, and I accept that, you know, there is a plan in place which is positive, and I like to see plans going forward for an area, and it's nice to see that. The concern I have with this plan is that the money has disappeared, and we don't have the ability to fulfil some of that plan. Now, Councillor Payne has pointed out some changes in the way that funding is happening, and there's no question that the fair funding formula will help with that longer term funding. But I do reject the idea that you can't plan a budget annually. You know, I work and have worked in business for my own for the past over 12 years now, and previously worked with many businesses before that. And there is short-term forecasting that does give you that ability to actually forecast for an annual budget. It's not the ideal, and I appreciate that it always helps to have a longer budget, but it can be done and operates very well in many businesses. What doesn't operate very well in many businesses is when a business comes up with a new idea and that business doesn't substantiate that idea, doesn't forecast that idea properly, and makes targets that are, let's say, a long way off from the reality that a business can make in its short term. And I think it would be completely unfair of me on the people of Gedling to not raise these points. In fact, let's not even feature my own words. Let's feature the words of the Taxpayers Alliance, who wrote in a recent report. I'm sorry? Pardon? Well, I don't think it really matters. The facts are in your own reports, Paul, so it makes no odds what they say.
Will you continue, Councillor Adams?
Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson, don't.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So, just moving on to the points of question. So, the Pet Cremation Service believed it will contribute £88,000 and achieve a 16% market share in the first year, citing a fully developed business case. In reality, it didn't exist. Furthermore, no calculations or methodology were submitted on the numbers of cremations expected to be undertaken annually, and to date losses have totalled £86,000, with deficits of £51,000 in 2019-2020 and £35,000 in 2020-2021. The crematorium expected income of some £173,000 in 2019-20, but the actual income was 10 times lower at just £17,000. So no wonder in the audit it was described as not providing sufficient detailed information to allow an accurate understanding of the potential risks involved. And this is where, in a business that a business person would own, they're able to do this. Even though I would never advise they do, they are actually able to do that because it's their money. And they can do as they see fit with their own money. However, we're not in that situation here. And this gamble, which it clearly is because of the lack of planning, has created a significant loss for this council. And if it was just on one possibility, one situation, maybe we could say, well, look, you know, we've learnt our lesson and we won't do it again. However, the tree cutting service, which combined profits after 2 years were estimated at 80,000, but actually created a total deficit of some 74,000, which is now forecast. Once again, predictions were way off the mark. And of course, although there is an acceptance that the pandemic will play a part in these things, and there's still time to turn that ship around, but as I understand it, we have no staff, and the reality of that happening is quite unlikely. And so that's a shame. That's a shame that that's happened. And unfortunately, I believe with the right planning, we could have avoided these mistakes, and therefore potentially could have avoided a council tax increase to cover those errors. Now, I was really glad to see that we've actually achieved some new homes bonus this year. And in fact, we've seen an income of over £1 million coming from central government from one thing or another, extra to the additional budget. So I was really, really happy to see that. And long may it continue. And hopefully we will see similar returns next year. I think what's clear in all of these things, and there's slightly more to come, but what's clear is that the instructions that are getting from the administration are neither researched or forecasted properly. And that's really disappointing. And it leads to a drop in services. For example, maybe we could have relocated some additional resource to the road sweeping teams when we were struggling for staff, if we'd have invested that money in staff instead of investing it in tree teams or in fact in a pet cremation service, which would have resolved issues of local street flooding caused by the blocking of the top water drainage surface, which is our responsibility. And in fact, I've raised an issue very recently to do with the A612. Supposedly we're on a rotation to get these streets cleaned, but the A612 hasn't been cleaned for, I would go as far to say, a year. And the run from the Burton Joyce sign to probably the Toby Carvery has a build-up of detritus on the road that is actually creating growth of plants in it. So, it's not happening, and that needs to happen because that's important. It's important to residents, and we need to make sure that that is carried forward. I'd also like to see, as we move on, that our forecasting for council tax is not based on whether there's an election year or not. In 2019, council tax was frozen. Funnily enough, that was an election year. And in the last year, it was not, and this year, it will not be. So I do wonder if we're going to see in the next election year, in 2023, another freeze. And my major concern with this, and I really hope we don't see a freeze in that year, because we shouldn't be hoodwinking people into believe that we have a financially apt administration. And I would like to see, as we move forward, that as far as council tax is concerned, let's hope that's based on the actual need and not based on an election year. Now, we've had a claim in here as well that Nottinghamshire is the poorest, that Gedling is the poorest borough. We know that now not to be the case. And I do thank the Deputy Leader for pointing out that it's not the lowest. And like I said again, with the 26th highest council tax in the country, it really shouldn't be the lowest. We should be really performing and outperforming, which again makes you look at why that is and how we can be taking that level of income, but still ending up having to increase council tax every year. Now, the key thing for me as we move on from this is that we struggle to back a budget that is in the position it's in because of a lack of care. Now, if we were in this place because we hadn't lost all this money to pet projects, to ideas about commercial operations with the ability to generate income, and these things have been actually researched properly with proper business plans, then it would be easier to back such a budget. But we really cannot do that. But the problem is still there. We still have to have a budget for this council. Things still have to be allocated funding to pay for these things at the council. So it's very difficult to vote against a budget in that situation because you have to accept that money has to be paid to certain items within that council and for that council to run. And I just want to touch on a couple of other things. I think it's great that the new AMP unit has been created in Arnold. And I look forward to its success and look forward to reading and seeing the business plan of that. And let's hope that when we sit here and review that in the coming future, that we actually have a traceable plan that actually has realistic targets and actually delivers on those targets. Because it's not fair on the people of Gedling to spend their money without taking that care in a time when, as the Deputy Leader rightly pointed out during the full council meeting at County Hall the other day, that actually the mention of the cost of living crisis was only mentioned twice in the county budget. I'm afraid it's not even mentioned once in this one. It says cost of living, but it doesn't mention the word crisis, and it only mentions it actually once in the entire budget. So again, this isn't a budget for me that's driven to help the people that are struggling the most in Gedling. I would like to see more of that. I would like to see a lot less waste than we're dealing with here. I'd like us to be successful in our opportunities with investment, whether that be through the Levelling Up funds, the Towns Fund. And with that sort of investment, maybe then we could transform even further and help the people of Gedling get the actual borough that they fully deserve, not that's driven by some decisions that, let's say, in any other commercial operation would not have been taken. Thank you.